Hello everybody, nice to see you all here. My name is Елена Mишutинskaya. I present Vyatsu State University, and today we are going to discuss the topic India as a source of inspiration for Russian writers. Any impact bases on some relationship, and the relationships between Russia and India have long and good traditions. And we may say that they are long and they have been for a lot of years and even centuries. To start my discussion today, let's mention the names of some painters because they presented India to Russian people, and people could and were able to see India, its unique cities with ancient architecture, learn something new about India, for example, about myths, religions, and so on, through creations of some painters. And the first name, which is worth mentioning, is the name of a well-known, world-known painter, Vasily Vereshchagin, who visited India twice, in 1874 and in 1882. India impressed him greatly and he created 150 sketches there. Later, they became the basis for his 36 paintings. And one of the paintings is presented on the slide, Fakir, which was painted in 1874. Two more paintings, Taj Mahal in Agra, and one of the most famous paintings by Vereshchagin, Suppression of the Indian Revolt by the English, which was painted in 1884. And one more name which should be mentioned, it is the name of Nikolai Rerich, who devoted much of his life to India. And in 1905, he wrote a parable about one girl who could understand the birds of, the language of the birds. And this painting presents the denouement of the story. A young girl, Devasari, gets the message from the birds that it's time for her death. She goes to a desert and bows to the ground. We can see a beautiful figure of a girl who is bent to the ground. She is bright and full of life, but nevertheless she is among bizarre shapes, black stones. The painter and philosopher presents the idea of relativity, of the temporary and the eternal, life and death. Not only painters were inspired by India, but composers as well. And for example, Anton Arensky, Anton Rubinstein used some ideas, images of India in their pieces of music, as well as Rimsky-Korsakov, who is considered the main architect of the Russian style in music, and he included the Song of the Indian Guest into his 1898 opera Sadko. Let's enjoy a short piece of it. I'm sorry for the poor quality of the video, but I think it's worth watching because it is one of the earliest performances by an outstanding Russian singer, Sergei Lemeshev. Let's enjoy it.
алмазов каменных
The guest is singing about loads of amazing diamonds in caves and pearls in India, and he is singing that India is a land of wonder, and spectators can notice the specific gestures, pay attention to the clothes of the guest, and in this way get their idea of India. So this is the introductory part to our discussion today, but now let's turn closer to the topic of today's talk. It is the significance of India, the impact of India on Russian writers and poets. And the list of Russian writers and poets who somehow referred to India is infinite. Елена Мишутинская, a researcher of this topic who studied thoroughly it in her dissertation, mentions the list of 40 names of Russian writers and poets. Other researchers add more names to this list. We don't have enough time to discuss the peculiarities of all of them in our discussion today, but I will highlight 4 main trends which exist in Russian literature, and they show the significance of India for Russian poets and writers. Trend 1 is related to the beginning of the direct relations between India and Russia. Russian merchants became the first ambassadors in revealing India to Russian people. Afanasy Nikitin, a merchant from Tver, left his hometown in 1466 for a commercial trip to India. During his journey, he studied the population of India, its social system, government, its economy, religions, lifestyles, its natural resources, and he even witnessed the games featuring war elephants. Later, his notes transformed into the book Voyage Beyond Three Seas, 1466-1472. This is one of the quotes from this book. This is India. Common people go naked and bareheaded. They give birth every year. They have a lot of kids. In Russian literature, it was the first description of a commercial trip, but not of a pilgrimage. And that was the beginning of the so-called travel diaries, or now we are used to the word travelogues. Since the Middle Ages, hundreds of travelers have left their travel diaries about India, but let me tell you some words about one more book of this genre. I have a problem. It doesn't work. Thank you. The latest book of this genre, which was written by Maria Arbatova in 2006, India Tasting, or the second version, Degustation of India. The main idea of the book is that you have to prepare yourself before visiting India. Otherwise, it can stun and shock you. Maria says that no films or books about India give the truth about this country, because every author can just present his or her vision, understanding, judgment of the country, and that's why she presents her own vision of the country in this book. She gives tasty and fascinating descriptions of modern Indian cities, and she describes exotic and sometimes terrifying India with its religious rites, cruel very often for our understanding. She depicts sacred cows, monkeys able to steal anything, and all in all she concludes that for her India is a country created by a smiling God. And thus, it is trend 1, and we should say that travelers are really good at reflecting India and presenting it to Russian readers. But nevertheless, I should emphasize that they do this with a greater or lesser degree of reliability, and it is their vision, not sometimes it is subjective. So this is trend 1, travelogues. Now it's time to go on and discuss trend 2, which includes the pieces of fiction where India is the setting. These books are informative, and they also give us a lot of information about India's landscapes, people, religions, political systems, and in this they are similar to travelogues. But what differs them from travelogues is that this information is interpreted through artistic figures, artistic devices, like metaphors and comparisons. For example, let's discuss a bit a trilogy written by Lilia Bazhenko in 2003, Once Upon a Time in India. This trilogy presents India in the Middle Ages, and let me give you some examples from it. Example 1. Сколько весен без вас? So many springs without you. 6 весен исполнилось тебе, а рассуждаешь как маленький. You are 6 spring-old boy, but you are speaking like a little kid. And one more. Я чувствовал себя сильным, молодым, как много осеней назад. I feel young and strong, as it was many autumns ago. These 3 quotes make us understand that the concept of time in India and in Russia is viewed upon differently. And where we in Russia would use the word year, in India the words spring and autumn come. Some more examples. Моя лотосоока, my lotus eyed. One more. Лотосы твоих глаз не меркнут. Lotuses of your eyes don't fade. These quotes describe a beauty of a woman and the image of the lotus, which we know has spiritual and cultural significance in India, is used. And the last example from this book. Все время видел ее, стройную, как сандал, гибкую, как пантера. I saw her all the time, slim as sandalwood, lithe as a panther. Thus, we see that this type of books is both informative and artistic. They are full of national metaphors and comparisons, which are based on India's national symbols, sometimes stereotypes, and they can still give us deeper understanding of this exotic country. This is trend 2. India is the setting. Let's go on to trend 3. It is not to write about India in detail, but just mention some symbols of this country, maybe sometimes allude to these symbols and stereotypes. And I want to start speaking about this trend with the fact that Pushkin, a great Russian writer and poet, used 26 references to India in his poems. This fact is taken from the dissertation by a researcher, Belkin. For example, in Evgeny Onegin, a novel in verse, we find the fact that the main character goes to the market and meets a person from India there who sells pearls. The stereotype about India being a country rich in natural resources is used here. Another great writer, Lev Tolstoy, studied India thoroughly, studied its religions, mythology, and even in one of the letters to his friend, a journalist from Bombay, he wrote that the Brahmin religious books had great significance on him and on his work. He also studied and liked and took a keen interest in fairy tales and legends of India, in folklore in general. One more example, when a Russian poet, Afanasy Fed, alludes to the Indian queen Sakuntala. She is the character of an ancient Indian epic, Mahabharata. However, Fed transformed the queen greatly. Her image in Fed's poem doesn't coincide with that presented in Mahabharata. We may say that the only Indian things in Fed's poem are the name of the queen, Sakuntala, and the presence of a Brahmin who gives 3 presents to the queen. One more example from the famous Soviet poet and singer Vladimir Vysotsky from his song about yogas. Let's listen to its short part.
Чем славится индийская культура? Ну, скажем, Шива, многорук, клыкаст. Еще артиста знаем, Радж Капура, и касту йогов, странную из каст.
What does Vysotsky sing about? He starts with a question: what is India's culture famous for? And he gives the following answers: Shiva with many hands and large teeth, a nectar, Raj Kapoor, and the caste of yogis. Thus, Vysotsky mentions 3 symbols which were widely spread in the Soviet Union. For example, yoga kept many of us to keep fit. We, of course, know the names of some gods. And also we liked and like Indian films and know the names of some Indian actors. And the last example presenting this trend is an example from a 2018 novel, The Inspection Bureau by Alexander Arkhangelsky. In one of the episodes, the main character is to join the group of people greeting a delegation from India headed by Indira Gandhi. This episode reminds us of a great close relationship between India and Russia, close economic, political, and cultural relationships between India and the Soviet Union. Thus, to conclude speaking about this trend, I should say that there are a lot of writers and poets who mentioned India in their works. And also India is very often referred in films as well. And the most common symbols which are used by the writers of this trend are the following. Some facts some religious facts, names of gods, the possibility of endless rebirths, for example. Also, great ancient culture is the subject very often, for example, fairy tales and legends. Also, the popularity of Indian films supplied some facts, supplied the Russian and Soviet writers with some facts about India, and the stereotype about India being really wealthy in natural resources. This is trend 3. And now let's speak about one more trend, which I should say is predominant in the Russian literature, and it depicts India as the land of wonder, as a paradise on the earth where everybody can find his or her enlightenment. This tradition is quite ancient. However, I am not going to start with the very beginning of this tradition, but limit myself with the examples from the 20th century. At the very beginning of the 20th century, there was a direction in poetry, in Russian poetry. The name was the Silver Age of the Russian poetry. And the representatives of this group, they were highly interested in India. And, for example, Nikolai Gumilev wrote several poems where he mentioned the samsara wheel, the transmigration of souls, and other concepts of Indian's philosophy. But let's speak more about one more representative of this period, Konstantin Balmont, a Russian symbolist, poet, who visited India several times, who studied Sanskrit, and in 1903 he made an attempt of the voyage around the world. His main target was to visit India. He was able to realize his dream only about 10 years later. In February 1912, he started his voyage, and in India, his main goal was to visit the city of Benares, or the second version of the name is Varanasi. According to the legend, it is the city where Buddha had his first sermon. And this sacred pilgrimage place inspired Balmont for creating the poem «Индия». «С вершин небес упал на землю Ганг, и браманы в нем черпают отвагу читать миры, глядя умом во влагу. Там, за холмом, томится Гамиланг, раскрытый лотос, достоверность дара, в той чаше голубое есть вино, глядящему упиться им дано. Готовит солнце празднество пожара, мечта звенит, священный вьется дым. Как хорошо быть в ладе с мировым». The Ganges, Brahmins, the lotus, all these things create the atmosphere of enlightenment and the atmosphere, the feeling that everything can be realized, that all your dreams can come true. India helped Balmont to overcome all the hardships of a turmoil in Russia in the early 20th century. And as I have already mentioned, he visited India several times, created a lot of poems devoted to India, and he always named India as his home, his Virgin Mother, the sacred light, a holy place, and so on. These are examples from the first part of the 20th century, and the second part of the 20th century also gives us some examples of idealization of India in short stories. And let me give you some information about a soul-stirring short story by Viktor Astafyev, written in 1965. Viktor Astafyev was born in Siberia in a small village. He took part in World War II, and the horrible experience of the war always remained with him, and he often depicted it in his short stories. And now let me give you the plot of the story in short. Once there lived a 6-year-old girl, Sasha Krayushkina, with her 5 brothers in a small village. The family was rather poor, and the kids often brought home something they managed to get to help their parents. And they couldn't miss the opportunity to find something useful in the ashes of the old store. And it was there the girl found a piece of soap in a colorful wrap. There was a handsome man in a turban, a tiger, and a palm tree in the picture. She was so happy. "I found India," she exclaimed. And since then, India became her fairy tale, her dream. And she kept the picture through all her years at school. Then she finished school and she became a telephone operator at the local post office, and she was going to get married soon. However, the war broke all the plans, and first her brothers and her fiancé joined the army, and then she left for the army, and she became a signal master there. Once there was a severe fight, and she was to fix the broken communication line. While she was doing this, she was badly wounded, and an old soldier found her in snow and tried to give her first aid. But it was too late. The girl was dying and mumbling something. The old soldier bent to her and made out her last words. "Hello, India." They were pronounced with a smile on her face. He buried her in the nearest village and wrote on the cross, "Soldier, India." Thus, in this story, India is presented as the representation of everything, of all the best things that a person can have: love, happiness, aspirations, dreams, hopes for the best, and so on. And the question arises, why did Astafyev use India but not any other names of other countries? And we can just guess, but let me return to Nikolai Gumilev once again. And in 1917, he wrote a poem, A Girl. In this poem we find the following lines. «День, когда ты узнала впервые, что есть Индия, чудо чудес, что есть тигры и пальмы святые. Для меня этот день не исчез». Gumilev writes about the day when a young girl learns about a land of wonder, India, about that there are tigers and palm trees in that wonderful land. And these similarities between two writers and a time span of almost 50 years make me think that Astafyev knew this poem by Gumilev, and he used this idea of India as being a country of dream to expand the idea of a hero in his short story. being Russian, I can say that the name of any other country wouldn't be plausible in this situation. I wouldn't believe a writer in this case. As for India, it can be true, and the reasons for this can differ from person to person. For one person, it can be that the word India sounds nice in Russian, or it can be its unique ancient culture, or it may be its exotic flora and fauna, or maybe the combination of all these things. But all these factors create an ideal India, a country of wonder, a land of eternal summer, where everybody can find his or her enlightenment and happiness. And this tradition is quite old in Russian literature, and it is still alive. Now, let me present you the results of the questionnaire given to young people, modern young people who live in Kyiv, aged between 18 and 21. And they were given two questions. The first question is, when you hear the word India, what is your first association with it? The range of answers is quite varied, from Taj Mahal to the Indian Ocean to spicy food and smiling people. But the top 5 associations are the following. Number 5 is taken by bindi and colorful clothes. Number 4 is taken by 3 things which take equal numbers in our questionnaire. They are the following: Buddha, Indian tea, and beautiful Indian dances. They rank 4th. Number 3 is taken by the sacred cow. And number 2 is Indian films. And number 1, I have already mentioned this today, they are Indian elephants. Thus, top 5 associations which create the image of India nowadays are the following: bindi, clothes, films, films with actors, then also elephants, sacred cows, and Buddha, of course. The second question was, what 3 facts do you know about India? And I should say that only 2 of the respondents couldn't give any facts. They gave their associations and that is. As for the majority of the respondents, they know quite a lot about India, and they know, for example, that pharmaceutics and textile industry are significant for India's economy. They also know that India was once a British colony and it got its independence in the middle of the 20th century. Also, they know that people speak a lot of languages there and more than 20 languages are official. As for the top 5 facts which were given by the majority of the respondents, they are the following. Number 5, the caste system, that it still exists, and the young people know this fact. Fact 4 is connected with New Delhi, being the capital of India. Number 3 and 4, they coincide with the associations. The young people know that cows are sacred in India, and the popularity of Indian films made the young people mention them, and they mention that the Indian films are usually colorful, full of music and dances, and usually have happy ends. As for the fact which was given by the majority of the respondents, and it is at the very top of our questionnaire, and I should say that it surprised me. I wouldn't give this fact, but nevertheless, the young people know that India is the most populous country. It has the greatest population now, not China, but India, since 2021. Thus, we may say that all in all, the young people in Russia now have, in Kiev, if we speak in particular, has a positive image, and this country has its symbols, and we also have some stereotypes about India, and these answers coincide with the image presented by the writers and poets of trend 3 in our classification today, who alluded in their works to India, mentioned only just stereotypes widely spread in Russia and in the Soviet Union. To conclude, I will revise the trends which we have discussed with you today. India is a great source of inspiration for Russian writers and poets, and we have discussed 4 main trends. Trend 1 is based on the personal experience, feelings, impressions got while visiting India. We have discussed the examples of Afanasy Nikitin and Maria Arbatova. Trend 2 is the combination of using true facts about India and their artistic interpretation. We have shown this using the book by Lilia Bazhenko, Once Upon a Time in India. Trend 3 is the usage of most common symbols and stereotypes by many of Russian writers and poets. And finally, trend 4, which is predominant in the Russian literature, is the idealization of India, the idea of India as a country or as a land of paradise on the earth where everybody can find his or her enlightenment. And India has inspired a lot of Russian poets, writers, singers, composers, painters, architects, and this inspiration has never stopped, and it is still felt in the 21st century. And finishing our discussion today, let us enjoy a short piece of one of the most famous songs in Russia now, which is based on the idea of samsara, the possibility of endless rebirths, which is one of the fundamental beliefs in all Indian religions.
Когда меня не станет, я буду петь голосами моих детей и голосами их детей. Нас просто меняют местами. Таков закон самсары, круговорот людей. Ой, мама, когда меня не станет, я буду петь голосами моих детей и голосами их детей. Нас просто меняют местами. Таков закон сансары, круговорот людей. Ой, мама.
Thank you for your kind attention, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer in the comments.